Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back once more to the ROS Media channel. I'm back again with my good friend Ian Clifford. We've just come off the back of a great webinar that we ran at the weekend, which was called Beat the Council Tax, the Art of Legal Warfare webinar. And we received quite a large volume of questions as well from members around the world. Many countries in terms of the questions. We had some international ones, had a lot of UK-based ones. So some of the questions were specifically about council tax here in the UK. Others were about property taxes in different countries. And then we had, I would say, some more practical questions about, well, how does this strategy work in practice, particularly around things like enforcement, liability orders, and then the recoupment side of things did come into the frame of questions as well. So today we're going to go through them. This is what we're now doing. We do the webinar at the weekend. And then early part of the week, we get all the questions that are not answered on the webinar, and Ian and I get together and we answer them here for you so that no stone is left unturned. That's the goal. So we'll go through those today and work through them one by one. We've got about 6 or 7 different sections that we want to cover. But as per usual, before we get into the actual questions, a great place to start is the problem at hand. So I'm going to hand over to Ian. Let's have a little chat about that, Ian. Council tax. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes paying it. Let's talk about the problems that people are facing with that before we get into the questions surrounding the solutions. Yeah.
Well, the problem is the trap. Yeah. I think David Icke has just written a book called The Trap, but this trap's a different trap. So
yeah,
this trap is the agency trap, which most people are, if they come to my webinars and read my technical papers, they're beginning to see what it is. And from all my research, nobody else talks about it. But I do, because to me, it's the problem that we've all got, which is the fact that we're all living and breathing beings, and we've been deceived into acting as the agent for the player piece that sits on this artificial monopoly board, which is the person, the birth certificate construct. So it's really quite a simple, explanation that a lot of people don't seem to understand. Is that first of all, you've got to realize that you're not the birth certificate construct. Now, a lot of people in the freedom and truth community know that. They've realized that they've gone from thinking that birth certificate that they've got in the drawer is a representation of them, and they've gone from that realization to I am not the straw man, basically.
Yeah.
So
and they're not wrong, are they?
And they're not wrong. No, they're absolutely not wrong. But their analysis is incomplete, and that's the problem. So they say, a lot of the truth and freedom community and a lot of people who stop paying the council tax say, well, the council tax applies to the person. I am not the person, therefore I'm not paying it. And that's basically what a lot of people are doing, is they're saying to themselves, to begin with, they've realized that they are not the straw man, the person, the birth certificate construct, and therefore the liabilities, which includes the council tax, can only apply to this person, this artificial construct, and it's not them. So that why should they pay it? Unless the council can prove that they've signed a contract, for example, or that they've engaged in some kind of an agreement with the government, their view is, their ideology, their view is that they've never actually contracted with the council or the government to pay it. And that is basically the problem, is that they misunderstand that the agency between the living man and woman, the living being, from the moment the birth certificate is registered, that's the beginning of the trap. It's a trap that doesn't really have any teeth until you get to age 18 in the UK. And then you start using the birth certificate construct, the person, the straw man, as your player piece on the monopoly board. Up until then, it's good old mum and dad, isn't it? They're going to do all the commerce for you.
I know, but what an elegant trap that is, because you've got the kids there, and like you said, it hasn't got any teeth until you're sort of aged 18, but that's 18 years of conditioning, isn't it? Going to school, understanding how authority works, and having to ask permission to do it never ceases to amaze me how even kids have to ask permission to go to the toilet, a basic human right, but they still have to ask permission to do that kind of thing. But then they're also seeing and following the example of their parents, and like you said, they see their parents using their driving license and their passports, and doing all these things within this world of commerce through the birth certificate entity. So there's 18 years of that, and then it kicks in for them. So to them, it's just normal, isn't it? This is what it is.
It's everything on this monopoly board is very cleverly put together, and it's very deceptive. But those that run the monopoly board have always got plausible deniability, because they legitimately can say, well, you believe in that, you do it. You don't have to do it the way you do it, because all the information about how this monopoly board works is all out there, but you haven't found it yet, or you found it and don't understand what it means. So they've always got a plausible deniability, because a lot of other people will say, when they realise that they're not the straw man, they're not this body corporate birth certificate construct, they'll then go into the next phase, which is, well, the government's operating in fraud. The council is defrauding me for the council tax. And then they go down this pathway of, well, what's the council doing with the money they're collecting? Are they using it for the local area? Are they going to repair the roads? And they go into this sort of moral pathway of, is it right and moral for the council to charge anything at all? Look at the state of the roads outside my house, or down, drive to work, and there's potholes in the road. So why should I pay the council tax when it doesn't appear to be doing very much for me? So they go into that pathway, down that pathway of, it's all a con. The council doesn't use the council tax that they're collecting to finance the local amenities or the infrastructure for the local area. So then they go down that pathway, which is, I'm not getting any value from this, I'm not going to pay it. And by the way, I am not the person, so that doesn't apply to me anyway. And and I think they convince themselves that there is, not only is there they're taking the moral high ground of not paying it because the council doesn't use the money which is being collected for the purposes they say they use it for. And it doesn't apply to them because they're a living man or a woman and they're not this straw man person. So I can totally understand why there are thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more people out there who are enraged by the fact that the council is coming after them for a bill that they don't think is applicable to them, and they're not getting any value out of it, even if it was in their mind. So that's basically the framework for this. And if you then go one step further and say, okay, well, what are they doing about it? What are all these people that are anti-council tax doing about it? And then you look into all the different ideologies that are out there. So you've got the same ideologies that we've talked about before. You've got the I'm a living man or a woman under God, and this legislation only applies to the person. It doesn't apply to me because I'm coming from a superior jurisdiction because I'm a living man. Can't you see that? Look at me. I'm not a artificial construct straw man. I'm a living man. So therefore, this tax it's only ever going to apply if I want to pay it.
Yeah.
And they get into that mindset. If I want to pay it, I will. If I don't want to pay it, I won't. And there's nothing the council can do. There's nothing the courts can do because I'm superior to them because I'm a living man or a woman, and therefore I've elevated myself above their artificial construct monopoly board game because I'm the living man under God, and God is superior to Caesar. So because you get into Roman law, all the legislation comes from Rome, and it's like Roman's law. So your Caesar got more power than God? And those that believe in, in the Bible and all of these, the King James Bible, that comes out quite often. Look at, it says in the King James Bible, all these different parables in there, that God is superior to Caesar.
Yeah, there's that phrase, isn't there? Pay back Caesar's things to Caesar, but God's things to God, I think it goes, doesn't it? Something like that anyway. Yeah.
And I don't disagree with any of that, apart from one thing, which is the problem is that you've been acting as the agent for the body corporate construct from the day that you started using your social insurance. You got that social insurance card, and you started opening a bank account. And the day that you started to play the game of Monopoly, you're a living being and you're moving the person around the Monopoly board as its agent. And as soon as you did that, it doesn't matter whether you believe in the King James Bible or any other religious text. It doesn't make any difference. In the law, you've now become liable for the liabilities of the body corporate, the person, the straw man, as its agent. And unless you can manage that agency tie between the two, there's not much you can do or say that is going to get you out of the liability.
No.
Then you've got other people who say, well, yeah, we understand that, Ian, but the thing is that in the law of contract is really, don't you understand the law of contract, Ian? Yeah, like if you haven't signed a contract, then you're not liable.
Right, okay. So you're talking about the whole no consideration, no acceptance for value, that type of thing, yeah?
So you've either got I'm a living man, woman under God, and God is superior to Caesar. So I'm not playing, I don't have to accept Caesar's legislation because I'm a man under God. Yeah. You've got that group.
Yeah.
And most of that is true. Yeah. Apart from agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got the next group that says, no, it doesn't matter about God, man under God stuff. It's all about contracts. So, on the Monopoly board, if you haven't signed a contract, you are not liable for the legislation. So you got a huge number of people that believe that.
Yeah.
So that's basically the two. I mean, there's factions of those two that you can break it down into subsets of those two. But basically, most people that stop paying the council tax believe that they are in a superior position to the council because of one of those two ideologies.
Yeah.
Or maybe both.
Or a bit of both, yeah. No contract, or I'm a living man, I'm not the birth certificate construct.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're right. They're not the birth certificate construct. We too accept that. We fully accept that. But do you want to just maybe just dig into this? You mentioned agency here, and that's the missing part. That they're on the right track, but it's incomplete in terms of what they're looking at here, or how they're looking at deploying this. So, where does the agency side of things come into this?
Well, the agency is really the trap. It's a very clever trap because they first of all get you to believe that you are the person. Yeah. And that's your 18 years worth of conditioning, and everybody around you is going around saying, I am this, the name on this bank card, passport, driving license, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody around you is doing that. So you kind of do the same thing. Yeah. Why not? There's nobody saying it's not like that, apart from maybe you and I and some others. So, but the majority of people you come across are, it's an accepted, it's like common practice. It's like, it's generally accepted that the name on that the name on this card is me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody says that's not me. If somebody said that, is that your bank card? You say, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my bank. Give it back to me if you've got it, because it's mine. It's me. That's me. Yeah. So that's the problem. It's conditioning. And then the subtle part of it is that it kind of is you because you are the agent for it.
Yeah.
Quite subtle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to get something, you have to use the person to get whatever it is you want to get. You want to go on holiday? You need a passport, yeah? You need a passport, yeah? Well, actually, you're the agent for the birth certificate construct that gets the passport.
Yeah.
So how do you actually move through customs? You can't move through customs unless you've got a passport, yeah?
No.
But it isn't your passport. You are just the agent for the body corporate birth certificate construct.
Yeah.
But try and go through the airport without a passport. It's going to be really difficult.
Not going to get very far.
Certainly in the way things are going with all the digital ID stuff, it's going to be virtually impossible to go through an airport. So there's so much conditioning that passport, that driving license, that bank card, that name on that document is me.
Especially when it's got a photograph of you on there as well.
And it's got a photograph, yeah.
Yeah.
But all you've got to do is remember that you're not this card. The photograph, yeah, that could well be a likeness of you, but that is you as the agent for the person, the agent for the straw man. And as soon as you see in the law, there's something called substance over form.
Yeah.
So the form, and this is where the people that say, I'm not, show me the contract and I'll abide by the council tax. Give me an invoice, because that's another one that people say. It's like, send me an invoice and I'll pay it. Yeah. So I've heard people say that. Where's the invoice from the council? I've not got one, so therefore I'm not paying the council tax, right?
Yeah.
So if you go down that pathway and you are in the mindset of, you're a living being under God, or you are looking for the contract, you don't have one, so therefore you're not going to pay. If you then go down that pathway, the problem that you're going to have is that the council and all of the courts know that you've operated as the agent for the body corporate in all different ways.
Yeah.
And this is substance over form, right?
Yeah.
So form is I am not this birth certificate construct. That's form.
Yeah.
But the substance is that you have been operating as its agent from the age of 18. That's substance over form.
I get it.
You could put the documents on the table and say, there's the birth certificate, there's the bank card, there's the driving license, and the form is I am not any of those. So that's form, right?
Yep.
But the substance, and the judge would say, we don't care about the form, we only care about the substance. Have you been using these things as the agent for these things that you've been using? This body corporate construct's been using these things. Have you been using them as its agent? And the substance say yes.
Yeah, so and it will vastly outweigh the form as well, won't it? When you think about it, over however many years. Oh, been on holiday 3 times, 2 times a year, driven a car since I was 20 and I'm now 40 or whatever. There's going to be a lot of substance.
I remember having a long chat with Clive Edwards from the Capillary Wave, right? And I had a video meeting with him, and he was telling me all about, he beat the council because he's a living man under God and he's superior, and he quotes all these scriptures, and all that stuff is completely correct. I've got no problem with any of that. And then at the end, towards the end of the discussion, it went on for a couple of hours, by the way. I said to him, how do you deal with the agency problem, Clive? Because, have you got a driving license? Yeah. I said, have you got a bank card? Yeah. How about a passport? Yeah. He said, he's got all of those. I said, how do you deal with the fact that you're operating as the agent for the birth certificate construct? And his answer to me was, Well, when it suits me to be, to represent the person, I do, and when it suits me not to, I don't.
Okay.
And I'm going like, well, that's like your wife tells you that she's partially pregnant.
Yeah.
How's that going to work?
You either are or you're not.
She isn't. Yeah, it's like you can't be partially an agent. You either are the agent or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the agent when it suits you and not the agent when it doesn't suit you. So I said that to him and he didn't like that too much. And that was the end of our conversation. Because that is the flaw, you see, in all of these ideologies is the agency. I've been talking about it for a long time. I put it in my technical papers.
Yeah,
I hope some of the people that read my papers and some people that come to the Q&As and my webinars are starting to get it, because to me, it's like that is the main problem.
Yeah. And the law of agency is very powerful, isn't it? So unless people can see that is the tie that binds, they're always going to struggle. Doesn't matter what they believe. Doesn't matter whether what they believe is true. It's that tie of agency that is trapping them.
If you like, it's our Achilles heel.
Yeah.
You see that the council and the government and the police and the courts will look at us and go, where's their Achilles heel? Oh, they don't know that they're an agent. That's our Achilles heel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they use it silently against us all the time without us realizing it.
Mm-hmm. So it's a big problem.
It's a big problem. And if you're going to beat them, you've got to know the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to know the enemy's strength. And that's one of their strengths, is that they know that we don't know that we're operating as the agent for the body corporate. That's their strength. And yet most people haven't realized what their strength is.
But getting into the art of legal warfare, it's all about knowing the enemy and knowing what their strengths are, like you said, but also understanding and knowing what their weaknesses are too. Yes. So for us, our weakness, as you said, is our Achilles heel is the agency. And don't they know it? But there are some weaknesses that can be used within the art of legal warfare when it comes to council tax. Obviously, you went into a lot more detail about that on the webinar, and that's not the purpose of today's interview together. Really, today, what we want to do is we want to cover the questions. So we know what the problem is, and the problem is agency. That is the big problem when it comes to you separating yourself from this legal construct, this birth certificate corporate entity that people feel they have no association with because they're living, but don't understand that they're tied to that through agency and have been, like you said, substance over form, been demonstrating that for decades in many cases. And that's where people are getting caught out. So what I've done with the questions is I broke these down into sections, and the first section is actually challenging the council tax legally. A lot of people are doing this, as you said. Some people, because they don't understand the agency side, are getting themselves into hot water. We've got many examples of that in terms of people that are challenging what appears to be a small bill, but is having huge consequences on the back of that just because they're not approaching it in the right way. So there's 5 questions here that I wanted to go through. And the first one is, how do you successfully challenge a council tax liability order?
Well, in the art of legal warfare, you look at the procedure.
Yeah.
It's all about procedure. So as I said on the webinar, a lot of people, if you were to do a survey and got thousands of people to do a survey, and your question to them is the legal system there to administer justice? The difference between right and wrong. I think the majority would say, yeah, that's what the legal system is about. It's about establishing what's right and wrong. Yeah. So there's some kind of moral compass being administered by the courts. Yeah. They're looking at morally what's right and wrong and using the legal system to administer justice. Yeah. That's what a lot of people would say.
Yeah.
It may not be everybody, but it would be probably the majority, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's a common belief, right? The problem with that belief is that it is fundamentally flawed, because all of those who work in the judiciary, the courts, the police, the lawyers, they're not interested in a moral compass.
No.
And I'd argue that many of them haven't got one.
Yeah.
If they had one, they wouldn't be doing what they do, right? So I'd even go that far, right? And the way that the legal system works is about procedure. It's all about procedure. Have you followed every single step in the civil procedure rules, the CPR as it's called, which is interesting because CPR also means something else, doesn't it? So
it does.
if you haven't, if you don't know your CPR, you might come off very badly, yeah. So it's an interesting acronym, CPR, but that's what they all follow, you see. And if you put one step out of line or miss something in the civil procedure rules, which, by the way, if you go online and download it, it's a book that thick.
Yeah.
Of different procedures. Yeah, there's a procedure for everything.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And the council tax is no different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to challenge the council tax based on whether it's morally right, whether the council spends the money on your roads outside your house, whether the council's, whether the local government act is enacted correctly, or you don't think it's constitutional, or whatever your opinion about it is, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to whether it actually applies to the birth certificate construct, the person, the straw man. Because remember, the person is registered to the cabal. It's registered to the state.
Yeah.
It's there. It's their player piece, which
That's
they're
the other
using.
part of the problem, isn't it? You don't even own it.
You don't own it. You
No.
certainly don't control it. And when they tax it, which is why, I mean, I could go deeper and deeper into this. If you look in the Interpretation Act, it tells you that all the liabilities are liabilities of the Crown. Now, when you read that, you think, aha, now I've found their Achilles heel. The council tax is their liability, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually mean that. What it means is that the liabilities are the liabilities of the Crown, but who's the agent for the birth certificate construct?
Yeah,
Comes
not the
back
Crown.
later. So you see, the procedure it's all about procedures. And the problem that a lot of people who are fighting council tax don't realise, they don't realise that it's not about morally whether it's right, wrong, whether they use the money to finance good works or whatever they think they should be using the money for, whether it even goes to the council. All of those things are irrelevant to the problem. The problem is about procedure, of how the council administers their case against the resident. The resident is the person, the homeowner, the occupant, the council taxpayer. They've got all different names, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will say, well, I'm not that name. I'm not an occupant. I'm not a resident. I'm not the homeowner. I'm the living man again. They go back to that again. And they will then argue all of those arguments, not realizing that the council's Achilles heel is not in any of those arguments at all.
No.
The council's Achilles heel is in the procedure.
Yeah. So in terms of procedure, what is because what I've noticed is the typical kind of way this goes is that if somebody doesn't pay their council tax bill, they're going to get reminders. Then those reminders are going to get a little bit more threatening in terms of court appearance. And then the court appearance is essentially for them to be able to seek a liability order. and then the liability order then comes through, and then it will go from there, typically backwards and forwards yet again, and then you'll probably start getting bailiffs turning up at your door at that point. So when you say you have to attack this from a procedural point of view, where specifically is it procedurally flawed?
Well, the liability order, you see, can only be issued, administered by somebody qualified with a license to practice law, basically. Yeah. Somebody legally qualified who's got the right type of license to practice law. So that's going to be a lawyer. It's going to be a barrister. It's going to be, it could be a court officer if they've got a bar license. It could be them. But the councils don't do that. The councils administer. They are actually practicing law without a license. It's an interesting scenario, right? Because they issue these liability orders as if they are lawyers, as if they are qualified to issue them, and they're not. But the presumption of the recipient is that they must be. And that's basically, in a nutshell, that is their Achilles heel. It's procedurally, they don't have the standing to issue liability orders. They don't have the standing to issue, any demands. They just don't have the standing in the law to do it.
Right. Okay. That's quite a big thing, in all fairness. And I guess that's why these liability orders that come out, when most people get them, it's just a piece of A4 printed paper with a barcode on it. It doesn't, there's nothing legal looking about it. It's not on official paper. It's not got no signature there. There's nothing to show any legal authority for it to be issued. It literally is a printed off piece of paper with a tracking number on there, typically. Because as you've said, there's probably tens of thousands of people that are not paying council tax. So these liability orders must be bulk produced. Just for it to be able just for the council to be able to administer that.
I mean, this is the problem the council's got, is that let's imagine that they went down the correct path, the lawful path. They would have to have a lawyer issue all of these liability orders. They'd have to have somebody legally licensed in the legal system to do it. And that's going to be a lot. That's going to be a lot more expensive than employing some clerk who's on an administrative pay rate, as opposed to the expense of a lawyer who then has to put their bar license on at risk if they get something wrong. It's a completely different scenario. So the councils have gone down the pathway of issuing liability orders on the basis that the majority of people that get them will just probably comply anyway, because it's like, well, I'm not going to beat them now. Look what they've just sent me, so I might as well just stump up the payments and go back to peace. And most people do that. It's only a few percent that say, I don't care what they send me. I'm going to fight them on the beaches. They're not going to invade my privacy. I'm fighting them on the beaches. As Churchill used to say, so allegedly.
So let's say somebody didn't fight. Let's say they reached that point and they kind of folded and said, you know what, I can't be doing with this dress. I'll just pay it. So if it went to enforcement action at that point, but then the enforcement action stopped. One of the questions is, if enforcement action is stopped, does the council tax debt still remain registered against the property?
Well, it depends on what's already happened. In most cases, yes. However, if they go to the next level and they start issuing statutory demands, bankruptcy petitions, and things like this, if you get to that level, which is, there's different levels that you go through, if you get up to the level of a statutory demand and a bankruptcy order and the official receivers being called in, which is where they take some of the people that don't pay, then you can actually, if you can quash, it's an interesting word, isn't it? Quash. If you can quash, in the law it's called quashing. If you quash the statutory demand and the bankruptcy, then the debt would disappear, because you're basically collapsing the case that the council's got, and the substance of their case goes with the quashing. But that doesn't mean that you're exempt from the council tax forevermore. It just means that the statutory demand was issued unlawfully, and you've quashed it. So it kind of sets the clock back to zero, or the bill back to zero. But if you don't get to that level, then you're not going to beat the council by saying you haven't got a lawyer to issue the liability order, because all that's going to do is it's going to take the teeth out of the liability order, but the bill for the council tax is still there.
Yeah. So what options would be available for someone already facing enforcement or collection action from the council tax itself? So if somebody's already gone down that road, and they've gone quite a ways down the road, and they've got enforcement action against them, or maybe even they are having bailiffs turning up at the door at this point, who knows? What are their options?
Well, again, it depends on what level they're at. If they're at the beginning of the levels where they're just getting aggressive letters, then the council's quite at liberty to send aggressive letters. It's only when it starts to invoke court process does the procedure, can you attack the procedure through the art of legal warfare. Once they start bringing in courts, or what they claim to be courts, that's when you can go back and push back on the alleged court process that they're following, because it isn't really a court process. It's just it's made to look like a court process, but it isn't actually a court process. Again, it doesn't take the liability away. It just means that you're going to put their fire out, their alleged court fire that they're trying to burn you with the court, and you're going to put their fire out. But the problem isn't just going to go away, because they can invoke other things to bring in. They could bring in a lawyer. They could bring in somebody with a bar card to issue all the documents. So this legal art of legal warfare is about collapsing the case, quashing the case against you. It's not about solving the council tax liability. It's two different things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look at previous action that may have been taken already. Because like you said, people are probably at different levels of this. Some are probably just on this journey and they've just decided, oh, I'm not going to pay it. Others might be very well down the road and might be in dire straits. Who knows? But in a lot of cases, people have taken it upon themselves to try and deal with this. And, while you could say, well, fair play for having a go and trying to deal with it yourself, there's also, in some cases, because of all this misinformation, because of the people not understanding the trap of agency, people might be, the action that they're taking isn't necessarily going to, number one, work. Number two, might put them in a worse situation. Information wise, it could very well be inaccurate or incomplete, as we've already established. So if someone's attended the webinar at the weekend and they're watching this now in terms of the questions as well, but they've already been down this kind of DIY route of trying to deal with the council tax, and they're thinking, oh, hang on a second, I've just suddenly had an epiphany on Ian's webinar that I've been handling this completely in the wrong way. What happens, or what would happen next with somebody in that situation? If somebody had sent notices or, these affidavits to the council, what should they do at that point?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have kind of queered the pitch a bit because they fired in notices saying I'm a living man or a woman,
Yeah.
and I challenged the jurisdiction of the council, and I challenged challenging the Local Government Act. That's not lawful. There was no ratification of it. There was no, I've even gone down that path where I had a good look at that, where a lot of people out there believe that all the acts that have come in, that's the legislation since 1973, are all void. Because allegedly, all of the laws transferred to Europe in 1973, allegedly. So they'll go down and say, well, the Local Council Act came out after 1973, therefore it doesn't apply to me. The Act's got no substance. Yeah, the Act of Parliament has got no substance. It was never signed off by royal assent, because the Queen advocated the crown. The throne. That's the line of that one. You see.
Yeah.
I've had a good look at that. Well, yeah, it's a very elegant. It's a very elegant place to research, but it's got no substance, and no court anywhere has ever upheld it. So even if it had substance, it's never been upheld. And again, in the legal system, it's all about procedure and precedent. So it's one or the other, right? It's either they're breaking the procedure, or there's no precedent to uphold what it is that you are advancing in their system, and they rely on precedent and procedure. So if somebody's already queered the pitch by saying I'm a living man, I'm a living woman, where there's no contract, there's the legislation itself doesn't have standing because of the Queen advocated the crown, the throne in 1973, or the Magna Carta protects me, or or the government is involved in. This is another one I've researched. The government's involved in war, and I'm not financing war because
I was going to ask you about that, because I've heard of that a lot. People saying I'm not financing war. Prove to me that you're not financing war is the line they take, isn't it? You show me proof you're not, and I'll pay it.
Yeah. Or show me the invoice, send me an invoice for the council tax, and I'll pay it. Of course, the council never sends an invoice.
No.
So I've looked at all of these things, right? And all of them look like, on the surface, they look, oh yeah, that's quite powerful. That's quite a powerful position to take. The problem is that none of them work. And if you have tried any of those things in the past, but if it was a football match, and everybody knows I was a footballer, if it was a football match and it's half time, you're probably 3-0 down at half time if you've been using any of those presentments, right? It doesn't mean you've lost the match. It's just that you're 3-0 down at half time, and you've got to change a few things in the second half to recover from being 3-0 down. Some people are 5-0 down at half time. As a particular lady I've been helping, it was 5-0 down at half time. So it's quite difficult to come back from 5-0 down if you know about football. It's not impossible, but it's quite difficult. So,
gotcha.
But there is a way of doing it.
Well, let's talk about the peaceful way then, because that is we've had some questions on that from the webinar itself. So, is the idea of this peaceful strategy to pay the council tax first and just keep them happy and then recoup it afterwards?
I mean, the answer to the overwhelming majority of people's problems in commerce, that's the problems of the person playing Monopoly, is that the fact that they haven't realized that the solution to nearly every single commercial problem is in the recoupment of the energy back from the Monopoly board through a correction of the ledgers at the United States Treasury, and a redirection of the taxes that are currently going to the Treasury from the payers back to the true creditors, which is the living men and women through their nominee tax filing structure. That is the solution to nearly every single
The
problem.
ultimate remedy. Yeah.
It's the ultimate remedy. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, if you could imagine that there was suddenly, I mean, this is quite topical, right? Let's imagine that a litre of fuel for your car cost £1 million. Just imagine that, right? That, you know, you wanted to go somewhere in your car, and in order to fill it up, it's going to cost you £5 million to fill your car up with fuel, right? How many people could afford that?
Yeah.
Hardly anybody, right?
Yeah.
So the majority of people wouldn't go anywhere, yeah? Because they'd run out of fuel, they just wouldn't be able to go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then someone comes along and says, well, actually, if you put this in your tank of your car, you can drive for as far as the same distance as if you put the diesel or the petrol in the car, right? And this is water. Just pour this in with a little bit of another sort of additional chemical that you put into it. Pour that in your car.
A bit of hydrogen.
And you can go as far as you could have gone with your petrol or your diesel. And by the way, it doesn't really cost you anything to put that substance into your car. And then you went round and you said that to people who are sitting at home, not going anywhere because they don't have the money to pay for the fuel.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, I'm going to fight the energy companies. I'm going to go and fight the government because they should have never have let the fuel prices go up that much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fight them all because, you know, it's a disgrace that the fuel prices has gone up so high. When the remedy's right there in front of them, but they're not prepared to use it.
Yeah.
The peaceful remedy. And that's the issue that, you know, we have at Republic of Old Souls. The remedy for nearly every problem on the Monopoly board is the recoupment of the energy that you've put on the Monopoly board through, through the tax correction, the tax filing correction. And yet hardly anybody's doing it. The only people that do it are the people that get it, right? It's like saying, well, there's your water, put that chemical in there and pour it in your tank, and you can drive as far as that will take you, right?
Yeah.
And it's virtually free to do it, and they're not doing it.
No, they're taking the angry route. Like you said, they're fighting when there's a peaceful solution right in front of them. Yeah.
Let's go and fight the government. Yeah, let's go and fight the government because they put us into this position. Whereas the solution is not to fight anyone.
No. So can fees or costs be deducted from any recoupment payout is one of the questions here. So this is, I guess, for people who are thinking about doing this, and really what they need to understand is if they're asking about fees and costs, then they, in my mind, they're not getting it. They're still not getting it. Not really, because we've just been talking about being able to recoup all of your abandoned credit since the age of 18, I might add, not just, you know, the last couple of 3 years or just each year moving forwards, but since the age of 18. I actually did a video this morning about this, and I used the example of if you could add all that up, just roughly, no one's going to know exactly what it is, but if you could add all of that up, then convert that into something that you understand, as in cash, and stick that all in a briefcase. How much should be in that briefcase right now? Imagine having that. How life-changing. How would that change things for you? You wouldn't have to fight the council. You wouldn't have to fight the bailiffs. You just open your briefcase and pay it peacefully. So when somebody asks that question, can fees or costs be deducted from any recoupment payout? I get it. I understand what they're saying. I don't have the money now. Can I go through the process? And when recoupment comes in, can I have that initial donation deducted from my recoupment payout? I guess is what they're asking here. But before you answer that, I would like you to just reframe that so that people do understand, because the way I understand this, there is no cost in reality if you understand how this works. So do you want to just frame that for a second, Ian, before we answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, and I've had lots of time to think about it, obviously, is that everything that you put on the monopoly board is a negotiable instrument.
Mm.
So you can't operate anything on the monopoly board without issuing a negotiable instrument, which is a security, a promise to pay in the future.
Yeah.
So you pay anything. Just use the word pay. If you pay anything, you are basically issuing. You're transferring your energy from the living man woman's energy through the banker, which is the person, the straw man, the birth certificate construct, that operates as the banker for the living man woman, right? So you've got to get that piece of information. You've got to lock that down, right?
Yeah.
The person is a banker. The straw man is a banker. The birth certificate construct is a banker.
Yeah.
You are the agent for it, and you are also transferring your energy through it to put that energy on the monopoly board.
Yeah.
And everything you do on the monopoly board is about energy. So that the monopoly board doesn't work without energy. That energy we call money, currency, energy. So when you transfer your energy on the monopoly board, you can leave it on the board and others can use it. You can lend your energy to them and they can pay rent on your energy to those that are using your energy.
Mm.
Or you can structure it, lawfully structure it, so that you get the energy back and return it to its source. And if you go down that pathway of getting all the energy back and returning it to its source, there is no cost.
No.
Because the only way that you ever pay anything is to make a promise to pay it in the future.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is the most difficult thing for people to get their head around, right? It's like all of us have been conditioned to believe that you can pay things. I'm going to pay this bill, wait for me to get my payment. Yeah. So I'm going to get paid or I'm going to pay something.
Yeah.
And yet neither of those two things it's impossible for either of those two things to actually happen.
Mm.
Because there's no money to pay it with. Again, you see substance over form. The form says you can write a check or you can send a bank payment or you can give somebody a note. But all you're really doing is issuing negotiable instruments, with the exception of giving somebody a note, a bank note, because that promise has already been made before. But everything else, if it's digital, is a promise to pay it in the future.
Yeah.
So it's an IOU. And the IOU is backed by your energy.
Yeah.
So there is therefore no cost, you see. So let's imagine that you had easy numbers. There's a million pounds if you're in the UK, or dollars if you're somewhere else. There's $1 million sitting of taxes that you haven't recouped back to you. That's your energy. That's the energy that the taxpayers on the monopoly board are paying to the United States Treasury.
Yeah.
And those taxes belong to you. But you're not claiming them because you don't know that you can. But if you know that you can, and now you're asking the question, well, if I recoup that $1 million, how much is it going to cost me? how can there be a cost?
Mm.
Because the what you're recouping is your energy. So even if there was a cost, that's another energy transference that you can recoup.
Yep.
So there can be no cost in this game of Monopoly. There can only be the transference of energy, the promise to pay in the future, and any promise to pay in the future can be recouped.
Mm.
So there can be no cost. There is no cost on the Monopoly board if you know that all of the energy you've put on the Monopoly board can come back to the source. All you're doing is redirecting the energy.
Yeah.
At the moment, the energy is going to the United States Treasury.
Yeah.
All of those that are using your energy on the Monopoly board are paying for it. They're paying for the use of your energy. They're paying taxes to the United States Treasury. Instead of those taxes staying with the United States Treasury, you redirect them back to you because they belong to you, yeah? Because they originated from you. So how can anybody else make a legitimate claim on your energy? It's yours. You get it back. But you don't get it back. And this is another myth that I'm going to talk about on this webinar on Saturday. I'm doing this Saturday. A lot of people say, "Ooh, if this catches on all the banks are going to go bust, aren't they? Because if you recoup
all your money from the
all the money the banks are using from the banks, they're all going to go bust. So they're never going to let you get away with that one, Ian, are they? Because they'll protect the banks, yeah. So this might only last for a small amount of time, because they'll stop it. Because if they let it catch on and lots of people start doing it, the banks are going to go bust. And it's like, no, it's because you don't understand how this works.
No,
we're not recouping money from the banks. There is no money to recoup.
No,
all we're doing is recouping the taxes that the banks are paying to the United States Treasury. Instead of the Treasury keeping the taxes, they give them to you because they belong to you.
Yeah,
because those taxes is the return of your energy. That's it.
So it has nothing to do with the banks.
It's a zero-sum game for the banks. It makes no difference to the banks.
Totally unaffected. Totally unaffected.
No.
Yeah. I think maybe that's come from the or maybe some people's belief in that has come from the phrase bank recoupments, which we have mentioned in the past, and people are thinking they're recouping their actual bank payments back. But as you said, it's the taxes on the securities that have been created that are being redirected back to where they should go, which is you, not the Treasury. So the banks, although the banks play a role in this, which clearly they do, it doesn't affect the banks. The process itself doesn't affect the banks. And I think that's the point that we want to drive home here. We're not going to suddenly put all the banks into receivership or into, the banks are bankrupt anyway. Everything's bankrupt. This is what people don't understand.
The banks are operating in debt, even though they appear to lend money, which they don't have. They are all debtors on the Monopoly board. Every player piece on the Monopoly board, no matter how big it is
a debtor.
Is the debtor. Because everything on the Monopoly board is in debt. It can't be in credit because there is no money for it to be in credit with. It's all debt. Everything is debt. And therefore, even if you took the richest man on the planet, he's actually a debtor.
Now, that's a subject for another day. And that is a subject that we have covered. So I just want to be mindful of this, because maybe somebody's new coming in for the first time, has landed on the webinar on Saturday to do with council tax, but has maybe not seen anything to do with infinite money, doesn't understand how that works, doesn't understand how recoupment works, maybe hasn't even got any of the foundational knowledge surrounding what even is money. and how does this commercial system work, they might just be starting to grasp this separation between the birth certificate construct and them as the living man or woman, and how law of agency is the trap, like we've mentioned here, when it in the context of council tax. But now when we start talking about this peaceful way, this peaceful strategy of being able to, pay, as we call it in modern terms, pay for your council tax and then recoup those taxes off the credits that you've created or the securities you've created, that might be throwing some people. So what I would recommend is, if you're watching this webinar and you haven't watched any of or you're watching this interview now, and maybe you are watching this on the back of the webinar that we did on Saturday, if you haven't watched any of the other content, I would recommend that you go first and foremost to the ROS Media platform, or into your members area. If you're part of the ROS Private Members Association, go to your members area. You want to be looking at the protocols. So on the ROS Media platform, we have a section there listed as protocols, and Ian and I cover each individual protocol and we break it down. What is it? How does it work? How can I use it? So I would encourage you to start with maybe the infinite money and just get an understanding of what is money, how does it work in the commercial system that we live in, and then this will make a lot more sense. So I just want to put that in there. So the next question is, what happens to council tax payments that were made in previous years? Can those be addressed?
Well, if you're collecting up all of the abandoned energy from the age of 18, that includes the council tax payments.
Yeah.
So, you scoop all of these things up into one large amount, and that's the amount that you're going to be recouping.
Yeah. Like I said this morning, if you can just imagine everything that's left your bank, every payment you've made, every mortgage you've had, every credit card, every loan agreement, every piece of finance, even the payments on the loans, whatever it is, if you could fathom how much that would be and round it up, roughly speaking, from the age of 18, which includes your council tax payments for however many years you've been paying council tax, or the poll tax when it was the poll tax, many, many years ago, then try and quantify that. So this isn't about attacking the system. It isn't about going back, 3, 4, 5 years and starting to question bills that you've already paid. This is about adding all of that up, converting it into a number. And like I said, just to put some reality behind this, if you could convert that into banknotes and put it in a big case, how much would that be? How big would that bag be? How heavy would that bag be? Be a lot for anybody, to be fair. So in answer to that question, like Ian said, yeah, what happens to council tax payments that were made in previous years? Can they be addressed? Yes, they can. Through the infinite money process, not by attacking the council, not by saying, hey, I've been paying you council tax for the last 5 years and I've decided that I want you to reimburse me because I don't agree with it anymore. I think your chances of that happening are less than zero.
Less than zero,
this way, very, very different. So we've got some international questions, and certainly questions to do with property as well. A lot of people are maybe in rented accommodation, but there's also people that have property, and maybe the council tax side of things is putting pressure on them as far as the property itself. So one of the questions is, how quickly can someone protect their property from tax liens or enforcement action?
Yeah, well, that sounds like it's a United States problem to me.
Yeah, just to me, tax liens.
Because the IRS, they like issuing tax liens. But the interesting thing about the IRS, and if you weren't aware, you may not be, I did a webinar two, I think. The last one I did was about 3-4 months ago, where every tax liability, if it is a United States problem, every liability is a liability of the United States Treasury. So if there is a tax liability in the United States, so the citizen, the person, the straw man has received a tax bill for some reason or another. This is only unique to the United States, by the way. Then that tax bill is actually an obligation of the United States Treasury, and it can be settled and discharged via using a nominee structure. So similar to recoupment of taxes, you can actually redirect the tax bill back to the United States Treasury for discharge through a nominee structure. And it's not just me saying this. It's in the United States tax code. It says that you can do this, and it even explains where you send it's called an endorsement. It even explains where you send it for settlement. So if there is a tax lien, there must be a tax bill. And if there's a tax bill, it can be discharged by the process which we've developed, where you set up a nominee trust structure that basically through that nominee, in the same way as you recoup abandoned credit through a nominee, you discharge the tax bill, which would then eliminate any tax lien.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. What can someone do if they are already facing foreclosure or property seizure due to taxes?
Well, again, if it's a tax lien, then it sounds to me like a United States question. So you get the bill and you discharge the bill through the mechanism I explained just now, and then the lien and foreclosure would go away, because if the bill is being discharged, then there is no threat to the property.
No.
If it's in the UK, for example, and there's a threat of bankruptcy, which is one of the most aggressive levels that you can get to in the council tax war, they can get a bankruptcy order. Well, you can't discharge the bankruptcy order by taking it to the United States Treasury.
No.
But what you can do is you can look and see how that bankruptcy order was issued, because it has to normally follow a statutory demand.
Okay.
And a statutory demand is a problem for the council, because a statutory demand becomes a secured debt obligation, and the council tax is an unsecured debt obligation. So again, procedurally, they have a problem in issuing bankruptcy orders. If they issue a statutory demand, they've got to issue it precisely in line with the procedures, and invariably they don't. And then it becomes a secured debt obligation, because the statutory demand secures it. And the council tax isn't the type of tax which they can secure a debt on.
Right.
So procedurally, again, if they go down that pathway, you can challenge the bankruptcy on procedural grounds.
Okay. So that's kind of the same differential between a secured and an unsecured loan, isn't it? You know, one will be secured against the property, one would not, or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay.
It goes from unsecured to secured, because it's all the time it's council tax, it's unsecured. But when they issue a statutory demand, it becomes secured. It's secured by the statutory demand. And the statutory demand has to be issued in a certain way. And again, procedurally, they generally don't do it correctly. So you can attack on the procedure, not on the bill. You're not talking about whether the council tax is owed or not. That's another argument. That's the difference between arguing the morality of it and arguing the procedure of it. You're not going to win on the morality of it, whether the bill is due or whether it's not due. You're never going to win that one, but you can win the procedure one.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's go on to some of the more international questions. I know we've had a couple, we've been talking about liens and what have you, but then there's a couple of questions here. Can this strategy be used outside the UK, such as in the US, Canada, or South Africa?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't really know what the individual circumstances are, but
Mm,
the art of legal warfare can be used anywhere on the monopoly board.
yeah,
Because interestingly, on the monopoly board, all of the moves, the legal system is on the monopoly board. Yeah, it's all it's a system of procedures that operates on the monopoly board. And given that the monopoly board is a worldwide board, if unless you're not on the board somewhere, or somewhere that's not on the monopoly board, which is unlikely, then it can be used in wherever it is that you are. Wherever you're living, you're probably an agent for a player piece that is on the monopoly board. And if you're the agent for that player piece, then the art of legal warfare can be used. For sure,
yeah.
it can.
And if this question, whoever put this question out there, if you're watching, if you're referring to can this strategy be used outside the UK, and you're referring to the peaceful way to do this, as in recoup all of your abandoned credit since the age of 18, then yes, you can absolutely do that from the US, from Canada, from South Africa, pretty much anywhere in the world. I think there's a few exceptions, isn't there, Ian, but not many, to be
Not
honest
very
with
many.
you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, not worth talking about really, because most
no,
people are, the overwhelming majority are not operating. Their player piece is not operating in a country that isn't part of the dollar system in one way or another.
yeah. Okay. Can the same approach be used for other taxes, such as property tax, business rates, or that doesn't make any sense in terms of what that version of tax is, just other taxes?
Well, the art of legal warfare again can be used for any debt. Typically, there is an enforcement of a debt, whether it's
Yeah,
a tax, it's debt and tax, basically the same thing. Yeah. So any debt enforcement, if it's going to go into the legal system, there is a procedure that the alleged creditor has to follow to collect the debt.
yeah,
And it's always the only way to win, if you're going to use the art of legal warfare, is to find the Achilles heel in the process that was used to
yeah,
try and collect the debt. And if you are looking for the Achilles heel, you'll probably find it somewhere in how the documents were issued, who issued them, and how they were issued. Somewhere in there,
yeah,
there's going to be the alleged creditor's Achilles heel, right? And once you found it, that's what you focus all of your attention on. And you challenge back, not on morality or, whether it's any other presentment's going to go nowhere, but you focus all of your attention on the procedure.
yeah,
The fact that it was procedurally deficient. And that normally wins, if of course it is, if there is a procedural deficiency. You
yeah.
can't make them up. You have to find a
No,
real one.
has to be one, sure.
Yeah, there has to be one. And I think that it works anywhere. I don't know of anywhere it wouldn't work. But if you're going to, the ultimate problem solving is the recoupment of abandoned credit, and that doesn't.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to go to war with anyone. So
100%. Yeah. So I want to set some expectations here in terms of the final section of questions that we've had. We had a couple of questions that came through dealing more with practical support, but I also want to cover expectations when it comes to any practical support that may or may not be given, because the questions that we've got here, one is just surrounding timings, which we don't have a protocol in place for this as yet. So for somebody saying, well, how long does the overall process typically take from start to finish, to see a resolution with this? I suppose that's a difficult one to answer at this moment in time, because we don't have a process to administer with a timeline. So
No.
do you want to just talk about that for a minute, Ian?
Well, I think everybody, if they don't already know this, that we're not an organisation that wants to take on the creditors, the alleged creditors on the monopoly board, and go to war with them all.
No, definitely
That's
not.
not what we're doing, right? That's not what we're about. What we're about is causing no harm and causing no loss, and showing people how to play Monopoly at the advanced level. However, for members who are being harmed, genuine harm is being caused to them, and they are in a very, very difficult place where they can't easily escape the harm. And, it's going to be maybe a life-changing event, this harm that's going to perhaps be caused to them through council tax, bankruptcy, or mortgage foreclosure, or something like that. We're there to help, but we're not there to advise, but we're there to give you the tools that you can help yourself. And what I think the most sensible solution to this is to provide people with the tools to solve the problem, which in the modern age now, with all this AI that's available, and I hate AI, but if we're going to beat the cabal without using AI, I think we'd be a bit foolish, because it's a bit of an advanced weapon that if you could use it in the right way, you could actually use it to beat them at their own game. And so the solution for the council tax, for maybe debt related matters, but let's just start with the council tax. If it's for the UK, which was the purpose of my webinar, really was for the UK council tax. I wasn't really doing a webinar on the art of legal warfare in Canada or New Zealand or Australia. I can do one of those, but that wasn't really the purpose of the webinar. It was about UK council tax. And we will develop an AI assistant where you will be able to feed your documents into it that you've received, and it will provide you with a pathway of remedies, written remedies, that you can send back to whoever it is that's attacking you, in accordance with the art of legal warfare, the strategy of the art of legal warfare. And therefore, we're not, you're not having to interact with us and get our admin teams to administer all of these documents and things that need to be sent back. You can do it yourself. And given that, AI is, as long as you've got a computer and you've got a printer or you've got an email account, you should be able to do it yourself. Should be able to.
So that kind of answers the other question, which was how can members access help or support with their specific council tax situation? Like we said, we're not here to go to war with every council in the UK over hundreds, if not thousands, of people's specific situations. We don't have the bandwidth for that. And as we've said, our primary focus is the peaceful route, is the cause no harm, cause no loss. And that comes from recoupment. That comes from recouping your abandoned credit. That's what because that fixes pretty much all of these issues when you think about it. Mortgage foreclosure, council tax, credit card debt, car finance that you can't pay for anymore. You recoup that great big sack or that great big briefcase of money, and then be able to cycle that year on year on year. So just think about that for a second. Whatever your problems are that you're facing now, whether it be problems that started in 2025 or maybe started in 2024, you're looking at 2-3 years worth of compounded issues that you're now facing, and you can't backtrack. You can't create enough leverage in your life to be able to come up with a sum of money that will fix those 2-3 years worth of debt. But what if you could go back to the age of 18? That's a lot of leverage. It's a huge amount of leverage that you can bring into the here and now, fix all of that, but then recoup it year on. So when it comes to members' help and support with specific council tax situations, I think what you've just mentioned, Ian, having some kind of AI technology that people or members could plug into, where all the documentation is already in there, all the research is already in there. So the AI would have its own set of parameters that it would stick to based on the information that it already has access to. And then people can load their own documentation in, can't they? I've had this nasty letter from the council.
Yeah, what do I do with it?
What do I do?
Yeah, I think that is the way forward. It can be the council tax protocol, but we're just not administering it and facilitating it. We're facilitating it through the AI, which you'll be able to access as long as you've got internet and you've got an email account. You could use that methodology, and we'll just keep up to date on making sure the information in the AI is up to date.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't spit out a load of nonsense for you.
Yeah.
Because it isn't actually that. It's not actually that difficult. It might appear difficult, but the procedures that the council are supposed to follow are very well documented.
Yeah.
They don't follow them in most cases. That's their problem, you see. That's their Achilles heel. So all the AI's got to know is what are the procedures and what has happened so far. You load up into your AI terminal, this is what's happened so far. These are the letters I've received. And then the AI can say, well, has what's happened so far breached the procedures?
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, spit out a letter that the user can send to the council or to the court. These are all the reasons why you're in breach of the procedures. Basically, see you later. It'll go away. Basically,
push it back on them. But you've got to be the one that does that. This is the expectations that we're trying to set here. If we do build this, then you're the one using it. We're not loading your documents in for you and sending you an email with a PDF for you to just print off. And you've got to be the one that accesses the software. I want to be really clear on this because some people just don't get it. You've got to be the one that accesses the AI, the software, and have the ability to do that. So, if all you've got is a mobile phone, probably not going to work very well for you, to be fair. You would need access to a laptop or something that's a little bit more accessible, and be able to put your documentation in. And again, some of this comes down to also education as well, understanding, not saying that you should have and memorize all of the procedures and all of the documentation that's going to be going into the AI, but have a basic understanding of what you're dealing with here and why it's fundamentally flawed procedurally. And then when you put your documentation in, you'll be able to type in the right type of prompts or questions, because the AI is only going to be as good as the information that it has to hand, and then the instructions that you give it to access that information on your behalf. So just to be clear, the responsibility of this is going to fall on the member, not on the Republic of Old Souls to administer this. We'll give you the tools, we'll give you the shovel, but we ain't digging the hole. Just want to make that clear.
I think that's the best solution.
I think that'd be amazing. Yeah, I really do. And I think a lot of members would use that. But you've got to use it responsibly. You've got to use it in the right way. Otherwise, you're not going to get the outcome that you're looking for. Yeah,
if you just think of the size of this, I mean, there's millions of council taxpayers.
Yeah.
And there's no way we can administer an administrative process for millions of people. It's just never going to work. So.
No. And if we did, then our focus and our eye of attention would be away from what we are trying to do here, which, as we've said, is recoupment. But we're not doing that. So
no, I mean, we're happy to help people with a remedy.
Yeah.
But our focus is on recoupment. Our focus is on the freedom plan. That's the big focus. And we want to spend our energies, invest our energy in that rather than going to war with everybody, because war is very tiring.
Yeah, it sure is. So any final thoughts, Ian, just to wrap this up?
Well, just that there is always a remedy for everything. And most people fail because they don't understand the nature of the problem.
Yeah.
They fight the wrong battles, and then they lose the war.
Yeah.
That's the majority of people I've met in my career are fighting the wrong battles and then losing the wars. You've got to know how to fight the battles to win the war. So if you're fighting the council on morality, if you're fighting the council because you're a living man or a woman and you're superior, you're going to lose the war, right? Because you're fighting the wrong battle. Actually, the only thing you should be doing is recouping your abandoned credit and using nominees and trusts and ministries in the way that I've explained on all the protocols. And then you don't have to wake up in the morning thinking about war. You can wake up in the morning thinking about peace. And that's a much more calm place where to be, really.
Yeah. And in a world right now that's full of war, wouldn't that be a great way to wake up?
It's too much war, I think, and that's the problem. But that's the nature of the Monopoly board. It's all about war, really. If you think about it.
Of course it is.
Not wanting to go on about this too long, but even those people who trade the markets, somebody wins, somebody loses. Yeah, it's a war, right? It's a war of methods.
Yeah.
The whole legal system is about war. It's one side fighting the other side. Tax, everything on the Monopoly board is debt and war, really. It's too much of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Well, guys, that brings us to the end of our Q&A for today. I hope it's helped clarify your questions that you sent over to us on the council tax webinar. And if you found this useful, if you're here for the first time, or even if you're here as a regular, please share the content. Yeah, let's get this message out there so that other people can benefit from the information that we have here. This peaceful exit that we talk about is the remedy. It really is. And it doesn't involve stress. It doesn't involve war. It doesn't involve fighting with the authorities. It doesn't involve trying to fend off bailiffs from your door. It genuinely is peaceful. And that's what we're looking for. So I appreciate you all listening. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye for now, guys.
Bye for now.